Guys, what's going on? It's Asher coming at you today in Clash Royale. Today, I have SK back on the channel. SK, what's up, man? How you doing?
Doing pretty good, Ash. Happy to be back and talk about some Expo.
Yeah, dude. Surprise, surprise. SK's on the channel. We're talking some Expo today. You hit me up and you're like, dude, I don't want to mischaracterize what you said, but you seem a little bit, I don't want to say bitter because you're always like a pretty positive dude, but you're kind of upset about the state of Expo. You think that this is like the third time they've kind of shadow nerfed it. I don't want to put words into your mouth, but I want to give you the platform to talk about an archetype which I'm far from an expert in. So why don't we start out with, how you feeling overall? Why do you think the Expo's in a really bad spot right now?
All right. So, firstly, I just want to say that, just to clear it up, the nerf that happened at this a few days ago was a 9% hit speed nerf to the Tesla, which is a big cornerstone of any Expo deck. So, if you actually think about it, for the past 3 or 4 or so balance updates, Expo has actually gotten a nerf to a card in the deck. So we had Tesla nerfed this time around, Tesla nerfed again at the start of September, Knight was nerfed at the end of March, and then Expo itself got nerfed in December last year.
When you say Expo got nerfed, I think the community at that point was a little divided. I'm going way back until like the next day, where there's more damage, but it lasts, less HP, I think was the change. So are you still, jury's out there? That was definitely a nerf in your opinion?
I would say so, because they said they wanted to make it less defensive and more offensive, which is fair.
Yep.
But by decreasing the lifetime by such a big amount, which was 10 seconds, 25% of the total amount, they actually made it weaker on offense against spells. So
True.
Regardless of if it's on defense or offense, you can spell it out, and it's a lot more effective.
Okay, so sorry for interrupting you. That's very fair.
Oh, no
it does suck when it locks on, though. When the Expo locks on, man, you're like, oh my god, my half my tower is gonna be gone.
It's more punishing for sure.
But you're right. So go on. So they nerfed a bunch of these cards. So now where things stand.
You think about all the top Expo players in the world. You have Bestine, Betfus, 7-4 before he retired, all of those people. And they always do well with Expo, regardless of how bad the meta seems or how bad the deck seems. So I think that it is also a testament to the skill of the players that we're always able to do really well. Not trying to include myself there, but just Expo as a whole. But I think that the deck itself is genuinely in probably the lowest spot that it's been in for quite a while now, just because of the fact that every single card that I mentioned has gotten nerfed. And so the deck is probably still going to be viable in the hands of those top players, but it's significantly weaker than it was before, and it's really going to be punishing for anyone who's not a top player to try and pick up the deck and learn it if they want to.
Yeah, that sucks, and I totally agree with you there. Like, the best Expo players in the world, they always play Expo. But you're right. I feel like the barrier of entry has certainly, gone up. And the stats back that up, because use rates continue to go, very slightly down, but win rates stay kind of steady the same. But it goes to your point where less people are kind of picking up the archetype. Do you want to jump into a live?
Yeah.
You want to talk about this as you play?
Yeah, sure.
Cool,
so I'll just search on ladder now.
Yeah, search on ladder. And while you do, what do you think is the best
found
version of Expo right now? We're in your match. What is the best version of Expo?
All right, so I would say either the version I'm running right
now,
Archers, or possibly one of the Archer Queen variants, just because it's a testament to how strong the Archer Queen is. And I think the strength of that deck is not necessarily in the Expo, but in the Archer Queen. I think we're actually against Expo Archer Queen right now, which is
It looks like we are. We got all Expo all the time here. Played a replay with Expo, so going into this matchup, and he does use his Expo. Let's see. No pressure here. No pressure, man. It's your archetype. You have to beat it. Yeah.
This is probably one of the better versions that our opponent's going to be playing. I think he has maybe Rocket in the deck, but it's run with both Rocket and Fireball. But yeah, I was saying that I think this Archer Queen version is one of the best ones, just because the Archer Queen itself is so strong, not necessarily because the Expo is strong.
Yeah. Totally. What do you think about the heroes overall to the champions? We're going to talk more about like how to fix things or what should happen moving forward. But my final question, I guess, on the state of Expo right now is, how do you feel like the champions have affected Expo? Obviously, Archer Queen is good against Expo and good with Expo. Do you feel like that was also kind of a nerf as you get the lock there, a nerf to the archetype, or not really? Adding champions.
All right. So I think it's kind of mixed considering champions themselves right now. Archer Queen is probably a net wash just because, okay, the ability does a lot there.
Yeah.
Just because Archer Queen itself is really good in Expo, but Gold Knight is really probably one of the harder counters to Expo. Just because of his ability to dismantle your defense.
Right, you go right through everything. Yeah.
Yeah, you have all your skeletons, all your standard cards, and he just dashes one dash and they're all gone. So that is probably one of the biggest hurdles for Expo in terms of champions right now, but Archer Queen I'd say is neutral, and Skeleton King isn't
right?
really that bad for
whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Okay, so do you agree that the Tesla needed a nerf?
All
In a
right, so
vacuum.
that in a vacuum, I would say probably. Like, I don't want to be biased. If you think about the card strength overall, it's a really strong card, and it wasn't only used in Expo deck, so it is a bit kind of narrow-minded to only think about Expo and be like, wow, they're always targeting Expo. This is an unjust nerf. So yeah, I think it probably did. But I think that also speaks to the other issue, which is how they've been handling Expo. And that's to say that I don't think Expo itself should have really been nerfed in the first place. I think Tesla and Knight were always kind of the stronger cards in the deck, and so those probably should have been nerfed.
Okay, what do you buy the Molt argument, right? The Expo is, because his argument's always been that Expo is just one of the most frustrating archetypes. Shame on you for using a building on defense. It should only be offense, blah, 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 right? And I say blah, 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 not as a shot at Molt, obviously, but like that is the argument, and a lot of people agree with him. It seems like Supercell might even agree with him, right? Where they don't want quote-unquote annoying cards to be pervasive in the meta. How do you respond to that?
Yeah, so I think it's definitely a valid point of view to have, as we just set up this next Expo, which should hopefully get us the game. But I think it's fair enough to not want to play against that kind of deck and that kind of playstyle. It's definitely going to be frustrating. But at the same time, it is also a lot of times players who don't have answers to Expo. Like, they don't really have the best constructed decks, for example, no main win condition or no big spells. And those are the decks where Expo really shines against. If you look at a lot of the meta decks right now, a lot of them do have pretty decent responses to Expo, where at least they can hold their own. It's not going to be a boring 5-minute snooze fest. But to that point, I do think it is boring to play against that kind of playstyle, so those players have a valid point. But it's not to say that it's about Expo. I think it's more about the defense overall. For example, the strength of the Tesla and the Knight, which is kind of what makes that so viable.
Okay, yeah, I buy that, and props to you, man. You're such a good guest, dude. I love how you really, you're thoughtful, but you're also, and you're biased a little bit, but you also give credit where credit is due to other opinions. So that's why I love having you on. Want to go one more match? I just want to talk about kind of the future of the archetype here, and I want to hear from my viewers too. Like, where do you stand in that whole Molt argument, right? Where just it's annoying to go against defensive buildings. I'm not sure how I feel about it because I think that personally, that kind of resonates with me too. Like, I don't find it super annoying, but it is, I think it's like the double elixir time and the triple elixir time where, especially with like old Icebow decks where they just go all defense and just rocket you to death, that particularly is annoying. So 2 questions for you. Number 1 is kind of what needs to change, and number 2, as we see the Ice Wizard, what do you think about that weird Ice Wizard buff? Do you think Icebow could make a comeback?
Oh yeah, so okay, this is going to be a big push.
Yeah,
I think that the nerf for Tesla probably hurt 3.0 Expo Cycle, the one I'm playing right now, more than Icebow, because Icebow also doesn't only rely on getting Expo connections. It can have that alternate Rocket Cycle win con. So I think about the Ice Wizard buff, it is an interesting buff. I don't think it was necessarily the correct buff for the Ice Wizard, because based on his playstyle, you're not really playing him on top of things that much.
Right.
He's really a squishy card, so if you're too aggressive with that, he can die pretty fast, and you don't really want that. But in terms of the buff, I think it is still a decent buff overall, and something's better than nothing. So I don't think it's necessarily just a useless change. I think it can have some applications.
Okay.
For example, against bats, graveyard.
Yeah.
I hope he doesn't freeze here. I don't think he has enough elixir.
Nah, I mean, he might.
All right.
He might. Nice job on that defense, by the way. You got that was a pretty big push.
Thanks.
This guy's throwing some stuff at you here, my man Smokey.
Yeah.
Playing my kind of deck, dude. Okay, so that's all fair and well. I agree with you on Ice Wizard, man. It's a weird buff, dude. Like, I've tried a bunch of Ice Wiz decks, and you're right. Like, occasionally you will have a opportunity to use it, and it will come in handy, you know? Very occasionally, though. But I almost think that it's more inclined to make people misplay the card, you know, like especially casual players, you know, to misplay the card versus actually adding something. But, you know, we'll see. It remains to be seen. It's nice to see them do something to the card, but man, that felt weird, that one to me. Anyway.
Yep.
So as you handle this onslaught of bridge spam here being thrown at you, what needs to change in the future? What do you want to see happen to Expo?
All right, so
This is your
I
message
think,
to Supercell. I know Rick and Max are watching right now. What's up, Rick and Max? How you guys doing?
For sure.
Hope to get them on the channel too. So I will ask them about this in the interview because why not, right?
That would
so
be
yeah,
cool.
what's your message?
Yeah. All right, so I think that overall, while trying to be as respectful as I can, I think they did kind of mishandle the Expo situation overall, because I don't think Expo itself was ever a huge problem. I think back in December last year, Knight and Tesla were definitely extremely strong, and I can't deny that, but I think they should have been nerfed before the Expo. But what happened was we got the Expo nerf first, then they realized Knight and Tesla are still really good, so they got nerfed too, and now the Expo's left in a weird spot.
I need friends.
Where, you know, it's been nerfed, the nerf still applies, and the rest of the deck is nerfed too. So I think, of course, we'll still have to monitor to see the win rates. If they're not too terrible, it's not like I'm saying this is the number one priority.
Yeah, but it's never terrible in Expo. That's the problem, right? It almost goes against you too, right?
Yeah, like the players, they really adapt, and that's where I have to give them credit as well.
Ooh, the zap quit. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that it is also a testament to the skill of the players, and if the deck is truly that good in the hands of a top player, maybe it is still fine to be left the way it is. I'd say right now my main concern comes from underleveled players and kind of lower ladder players who want to play the deck, where these nerfs only hurt them. I've seen a lot of people in my YouTube videos comments and in my server talking about how they're really frustrated about the nerf and how it punishes them for being underleveled, punishes them for not playing perfectly every single play. And so I think the question would be, if Expo is kind of in this spot where all the problematic cards are addressed, could we see some kind of change or possibly reversion of the Expo nerf or rework, where Expo as a card itself could be slightly buffed, so that it's a bit more strong without having to rely on all these other overpowered cards, if that makes sense.
Okay, and what is your request for the perfect buff? I'm totally on the fence, by the way, on this one. I haven't really shared my opinion because I'm not sure. It's weird when you look at it, to my point earlier, like the win rates are still pretty decent, you know? And I get it. I get that it's a high skill deck and people who know it really know it well, but you know, it's hard to say. I don't want a meta where Expo is running rampant either, you know? So
yeah,
I'll kick it back to you, SK. What would be, final question, what would be the perfect buff if you could have your way? What would it be right now? Obviously, not overdoing it either, right?
Yeah, so I don't want to undermine kind of the amount of playtesting that they do, because of course they're not just going to throw these random reworks and nerfs without actually testing, so I can't say that whatever I say will be a perfect change, because obviously I haven't tested it, but I think the main problem right now is kind of Expo's lifetime and maybe HP. So I guess a decent slight start could be maybe buffing the HP a little bit, just so that it's a bit more survivable against spells. Because, again, kind of the issue I was talking about was how its lifetime is so low that whether it's on defense or offense against the right spells, it's really weak if they have the right cards. So possibly maybe a small like 4% HP buff could be a good start. I would personally like to see maybe something with its lifetime increase, but I know that's going to open a lot of kind of questions, and if it might be too over the top, so that would be something that would have to be considered with a lot more thought into it.
Sounds good, man. I think that's a fair request, especially, you know, think about all the cards that have been added to the game that counter Expo anyway in the last couple of years, like the Earthquake being the biggest one, right? And even in the card preview, they show it against a Royal Giant, man. They're showing it lose. Like, that's pretty bad, right? It's like another slight that Supercell's like, let's give those Expo players a Royal Giant on the card feature, man. So, hey, dude. Thank you so much for coming back on the channel. I got to run here, but always great to hear from you. Big shout out to your YouTube channel as well. I'll have that linked. Everyone should go subscribe to SK. Let's get him. What's your next milestone?
So I actually, about 2 or 3 days ago, hit 5,000 subscribers, and that's been really huge for me. So
let's set a bar pretty
really
realistic. Let's go 6K. Let's try to get SK to 6K, guys. Let's do that. So again, subscribe to SK right now. SK, thanks for joining me, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I appreciate it a lot. Thanks a lot for having me, man.
No problem. Guys, I want to hear from you. What do you think about Expo? Is Supercell trying to kill this archetype, or is it just fine? I mean, SK came on complaining, but then he did very well. Amazing gameplay, right? I kid on that, but you guys let me know your opinions, of course. And a big shout out to Bren Chong. Big shout out to GFUEL, my sponsor here on the channel. I'm drinking Sour Chug Rug right now. If you guys want, there's a 10% off your GFUEL order if you use code ASH in the shop. Links in the description below. Big shout out to Stats Royale, where you can see SK's player stats and profile as well. And to Bren Chong. Thank you for watching, and as always, take care, guys.